When Roland made the announcement for the Juno-X, my initial thought was, well, they really screwed up and they missed a golden opportunity to introduce another legendary analog synthesizer based off of the Juno or the Juno lineage. I was wrong. Stick around and let's take a deeper look at what this synth can do. Hello, Internet. Chris Cline here with Alma Music Center in San Antonio, Texas. And today we're going to take a deeper look at the Roland Juno-X. Before we do that, if you haven't subscribed, please smash the subscribe button because we're going to be introducing more synthesizers, audio products, you name it, all across the board, and we want to share this information with you. So let's go ahead and move forward and let's talk about the Roland Juno-X and exactly what it has to offer. Now, as I said in my opening, I thought that Roland missed a grand opportunity. And after I started playing with this, I knew within 10 minutes that I was wrong. The Roland Juno-X offers all kinds of flexibility with connectivity, the way you can save sounds, import sounds, export sounds. It's a Zencore synth. It uses the analog modeling behavior, which gives it a little more processing power or eases up on the processing power so you can have it to 256 note polyphony. This thing is an absolute beast. Does it sound analog? Absolutely. Does it feel analog? I think that's incredibly subjective. You know, I have a bunch of analog synthesizers, and there is a certain robustness that exists in analog synths that I don't necessarily feel in digital, but this does sound like a 106 and a Juno 60. It looks like a Juno 106. The layout, the signal flow on the synth itself is similar to a Juno 106 or a Juno 60. The choruses sound amazing, and there's a third chorus on here. You've got effects. You have three different filters. You have a Roland style filter, you have a Moog ladder style filter, and both of those are kind of similar. It depends on what the patch is. And then you have a sequential circuits filter as well, or a profit filter, which is significantly different than the other two. You have the ability to bring more Zencore instruments into this device. It has the Roland XV5080 built into it already, so you have an additional 896 sounds or patches, almost 900 patches, as well as other Zencore patches, plus of course, once again, the 106 and the 60. You also have a vocoder, pianos, you have multiple output options. It has balanced XLR outputs, which is almost always the way to go because you're going to help reduce RF in your signal chain, in your path. You can hook it up to a computer via USB. You can save, export, move things around via a flash drive. You have your microphone in for your vocoder. You have MIDI in and out, standard 5-pin DIN. They put so much into this. One of the things I think that would have been really, really cool, especially with today's trends, that they didn't add to this, maybe they'll do it later with a Juno, whatever they're going to call it, is having the option or the ability to send CV and gate. And they didn't do that here. And I think that they did miss a grand opportunity there because so many people are now exploring the world of modular. And there's also more budget conscious or budget friendly modular options, all-in-one options like the Moog Mother, everything that Behringer's releasing, love them or hate them, they're releasing some really, really cool semi-modular devices. And it would have been nice to have been able to interface the Juno-X with a standard CV voltage gate with electrical signals, and they didn't do that, but they did so much more. And it's such a beautiful keyboard, and it's built like a tank. It has speakers on board, so if you don't want to fire up your whole system, you can, you know, dig in, do sound design stuff all day, or just try to get some ideas without powering up your entire studio. They really put so much thought into this, and honestly, you know, the past few years for me, everything that Roland has offered, besides some of the boutique stuff, to me, they've missed the mark in so many ways, but I think they nailed this. And once again, I want to stress this. When they announced it, I really thought that they dropped the ball. And then I started playing with it. I was playing with it at home yesterday, and I got completely lost, which I normally do with certain synthesizers. There's some where I just, I turn them on for 10 minutes and they're off and I couldn't care less. And with this one, I actually jumped up out of my studio, my home office, went into my wife's office and I said, I think I need one. And when I say I think I need one, there's like a 98% chance that I think I need equals I'm going to buy this as soon as I can. It's so much fun, and let's take a look at how this thing is laid out, what it can do. And we're not going to get super deep. I just want you to have an understanding of what it can offer, how easy it is to create sounds, and how easy it is to dial in sounds. The Arpeggiator is so much fun and so inspiring. So we're going to look at those things. So I'm just going to shut up and we're going to dive in and we're going to start taking a look at what this thing can do for us. So before we start diving into this, the first thing I'm going to do is turn off the internal speakers because I really don't want to hear them right now. And that was really the only thing that I had to search for in the manual. Everything else I just kind of poked around until I figured it out. And it's laid out really well. So once again, before we do anything, we're going to go ahead and turn off the internal speakers. So I'm going to press Menu, and then I'm going to use the Select knob to go down to our System, Enter, and then we're going to find the speaker switch. Right now it's set to auto. We're going to turn it off. And there we go. Cool. So when we fire this up, by default, it's going to take you to scene 1 or bank 1, scene 1, which is the Juno-X synth. Now, if you look here, we have 8 different buttons. We have another 16, and these buttons can serve different purposes, from choosing a scene, a patch, a tone, to parts, because each scene can have up to 5 parts, so that we can actually go into our part or oscillator select. It just depends on how you have the keyboard configured. So before we start doing that, let's talk a little bit about the signal flow. And this is going to be very specific to our Juno-X 106 and Juno-60 models that are preloaded. Remember, this is Zencore. We can put more into here if we want to. The JD800, SH101. There's so much that Roland offers that we can actually pump into here, but we're going to go ahead and discuss what's already on board. Most importantly, the Juno-6 and the Juno-60 and what all this stuff means and how the signal flow works. So let's go ahead and do that. And what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and take this into the Juno 106 model bank. And I did that by pressing model bank and then selecting the Juno 106. And now if I play a chord, you can see the readout here. It says Juno 106 soft pad. And I'm already thinking of this song called Forever Young by Alphaville, because that's what it sounds like. Whatever the progression is, I know it's in the key of C. That's all I know. It's probably figure out pretty quickly, but we don't want to do that. So we have the Juno 106 soft pad. We can easily change the patch by turning the value knob. And then everything on here is applicable, right? So let's just go ahead and play a C chord. Let's turn our resonance up. Let's get the squeal. And just like a good old-fashioned Roland filter, as we get down to the lower end of our cutoff, you can really hear it start to pump up that low end, which is really nice. Of course, we have the 3 filters. We have the Moog-style ladder filter as well. You don't have that low end bump. And then we have the sequential circuits. Now, if you notice, when I switch to the sequential, it already takes off some of the top end. So let me hold the chord and switch between the 3. Let's go back to sequential. it's already a little more dull. Go back to Roland one more time. You can really hear the low end come through. Again, we don't have that extremity with the Moog and the sequential, which is fine, whatever. But we can switch around patches really quickly. And we can change the envelope. And as we change the envelope here, we also have this little GUI that's showing us the same representation that the sliders have been positioned to. It's mirroring the sliders, right? The faders, whatever you want to call them. They're really potentiometers, aren't they? So we can sit here and go through patches all day long, or we can create our own. And here's where I want to talk about the layout and the signal flow. So the way that we're going to do this is we have our preloaded models once again. So I'm going to go ahead, and we're already there. 8 for our user, right? And it brings us to our initialized tone. Now, if you're listening carefully, you will notice that there's a little bit of reverb there. Now there's more. I'm going to turn that off. Really, an initialized tone should have nothing attached to it whatsoever, right? Now, this initialized tone is not following our current layout that we have with all of our faders and potentiometers and everything else. So in order to manipulate and change its initialized tone, including our oscillator, right, we need to move these faders around a little bit, right? So I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to kind of zero everything out here. So there is our pulse, or square, saw, sub, and noise, and then we can detune here as well. We're not necessarily worried about that. Bring the saw up. Go into super saw mode. It becomes pretty amazing really fast. So the signal flow goes like this. And for those of you that are in modular, this will probably have even greater meaning to you. Of course, we don't need to patch anything here. But we do have our Arpeggiator first, the I-Arpeggio, which is an AI-enabled arpeggiator. The reason we have that first is because it's going to tell our oscillator what notes to play, right? But we're not going to dive into this just yet. We have our LFO, which of course can modulate just about anything on here right now. But the oscillator and the oscillator mixer is first in our path, right? So right now we're just listening to the pulse, and we can manipulate the width of that, which is really, really great. Nice option to have. We can blend. We can bring our sawtooth into there. We can bring our sub if we want to get really nice and thick. We can bring our noise in there as well. Give it a little more character. And then from there we have our high pass filter. We have our standard low pass filter. Now let's listen to the 3 filter types again. I'm going to bring the resonance all the way down. So there's the Roland, there's the Moog ladder, and there's a sequential. Once again, if you're listening, a lot of our top end is taken away as soon as we engage the sequential circuit. So back to the Roland, let's go ahead and sweep it and hear how it sounds. Let's go to the Moog ladder. Back to the Roland. So the Roland gives us just a little more bite. The sequential darkens up the filter almost immediately. We turn up the resonance. Now that's our sequential, the Moog. Then we go to the Roland. And immediately the low end just goes nuts as we start sweeping it because it has a really, really sharp peak on it. Okay, pretty awesome. Then we have our amp level. And then of course we have our amplitude envelope, right? What we're most concerned with here is our ADSR for, well, the amplitude, right? So the attack, decay, sustain, release. So we'll just bring everything down, then we have nothing. So if I turn the attack up, you notice it swells in. Because we have no decay, it goes away as soon as it's done going through the attack stage. Let's bring the decay up. And if you look here at the screen, you'll notice that the amplitude envelope, or the sound, the volume, or the intensity is going to mirror what we have here, right? So it has this slow rise and this slow decay with no sustain and no release. If I let go of the key, it's gone instantly. We bring the sustain up. And then when I let it go, since there's no release, it's going to turn off immediately with the key off MIDI message. Let's go ahead and bring the release up. And then it slowly goes away altogether. Then after all this, and this is something that we don't have on the original Juno 60 or the Juno 106, except for the chorus, we have some effects. We have drive, reverb, the master effects level, delay, and then of course we have our delay time, as well as feedback. And you probably can't see it here, but in blue silkscreen, it says feedback, reverb. We have our time in blue silkscreen, so we can actually control those as well, which is really, really important. And the way that we would do that is we actually would press the function key down here, and we'll get to this in a second. But let's listen to the chorus one first. So let's go ahead and listen to just a very, very basic C chord. Let's go ahead and turn this down, and then let's turn on the chorus. And it immediately becomes this rich, lush, nice, large stereo image. We go to number 2. It's a little different. And then 3. And then we can engage all of them. And you can actually hear it like oscillating. There's like an LFO, la 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 la. It's really pretty sweet. So let's turn those off. And let's turn the reverb up. And let's bring our delay up. And as I turn these dials, these potentiometers, whatever you want to call them, you will notice here it will tell me how much I'm sending to the effects unit, if you will. Right? I can manipulate the time. And if you can see what's happening here, it's manipulating by a note value, if you will, which is going to be determined by the tempo of the device. So if you notice here, when I press the part function button, when it turns blue, that means it's going to be applicable to anything that's in blue silkscreen on here. So right now I can adjust the feedback of the delay. So the feedback is really cranked up right now. We're almost at 100%. Turn the chorus on. So it's a nice circuit. And then we also have our drive. Really get those harmonics to poke through. Really powerful, really easy to manipulate. They made this so user-friendly. It's so much fun. So let's actually build a sound. So with that being said, let's go back to our original initialized tone. Let's do that. So we have effects. Let's turn those effects off. Make sure that's off. Make sure drive's off. So how easy would it be to create a bass tone? So let me play a bass part. First, I'm going to go ahead and just drop this down an octave. Okay. There we go. So let's go ahead and bring our decay back. And I like the bite of the attack, but I'm going to go ahead and bring it up just a little bit. There we go. Let's bring our release back all the way and start to bring it up so we have a little bit of release there. Let's bring our resonance up. So I'm going for somewhat of like an acid bass right now. Let's bring our sub-oscillator up. There we go. Back that off a little bit. Give a little bit of noise. There we go. There we go. So there's a pretty simple bass sound for you. Bring the attack back just a little bit more. So let's go ahead and fire up the Arpeggiator. I'm going to go ahead and press the hold switch. Tempo down. And let's go ahead and play with the cutoff. So we can thicken it up by adding chorus. We can take it further by adding delay. Let's get more feedback in there. Let's distort it. And there we go. Turn the Arpeggiator off. And there was our simple bass tone. But now, how easy would it be to create a pad of some kind? That doesn't sound like a pad at all, right? And the only thing that I've done so far besides turn off the effects is I moved this back up an octave. Right? So let's work on this a little bit. So let's go ahead, let's use our sawtooth. Make sure that distortion is down. There we go. No noise, no sub. A little more sustain, a little more release. Add some chorus. Maybe add a little bit of the square wave or the pulse. And now we have a pad, and that happened in probably less than 2 minutes, right? Now, we haven't talked about the LFO yet. And for those of you that are really into the boards in Canada and Pi Corner audio and things of that nature, well, we can kind of get to that type of feel, pad feel, really fast. I'm going to bring the cutoff back a little bit more, a little more resonance. And now I'm going to manipulate the pitch with the LFO. Too much. Let's bring our cutoff back up a little bit. Now we can get the LFO into really, really crazy territories, of course, by turning the depth way up and the rate. And then, of course, we can have the LFO also modulate the filter. Or the amp. So you can have the LFO modulate all three destinations just by selecting through pitch, filter, and amp. Again, incredibly robust, easy to program, lots of fun. But then we also have all of our scenes and other models that exist on here. The 106, the 5080. So for instance, if we went to Model Bank and press 5080, well, now we are in the XV5080. And once again, we have 896 different voices on here that we can play with. So everything that lives in the 5080. There's no shortage of what you can dive into and what you can access. I know a lot of people are already saying, well, it's just like having a bunch of plugins and a controller. But it's much more than that. And it's also a great performance device. And it's also a great device to help spark or ignite inspiration. The I-Arpeggio is an AI-enabled arpeggiator. So if we were to go into, well, let's go into a scene that's going to have a lot of different, so let's do this. So the 7th bank of scenes have a lot of different options for your arpeggiator, right? And as I start playing around the keyboard, the AI kicks in and it starts to get more exciting, or it'll start to tone down a little bit, right? See how as I'm playing less keys, the arpeggiator and the drum part starts to mellow out a little bit. But if I come up here and start playing around, if I start playing around, it starts incorporating more drums into the pattern, and the rhythm becomes a little more intense. It's so much fun. And again, this isn't for everybody, but it can really, really help to spark inspiration as you're playing around. I know a lot of you out there are probably going to want to program your own drum machines and not use the patches or the drum parts that exist here, especially when the AI kicks in. But once again, it can be a big bonus into helping to ignite inspiration. So right now, we're in scene 713, Tough Nut 1 ARP. The arpeggiator's off. If I turn it on, so once again, as I start playing around the keyboard, it does a lot of really, really cool things, but I can actually change that as well. So let's try, this is a CR78, 109. And so we can actually access all kinds of different drum sounds and patterns as well when we're playing with the arpeggiator, the I-Arpeggio. So this says I beat 2. But let's go to something that might be a little more familiar. So we've got CR78, 1125. Not quite sure what the 1125 means. Maybe some of you out there do. If you do, kudos to you. You know a lot more than I do. But let's just go ahead and play something real fast and see what happens. So it's a little CR78 beat. This says I-90s 70. Oh, there we go. So let's find a different. So it's going all kinds of crazy. Sounds like there's some 909 in there, or maybe a 707. Let's see what it says. Oh, it's a CR78. We can change it, of course. Here we have an 808. So as I start incorporating more notes, it starts to build up once again. There are no shortages of rhythms in here. And we can just go on and on and on all day. Sorry for my rudimentary keyboard playing. I am not a keyboardist, just a keyboard nut, which I've stated in other videos before. So once again, all kinds of stuff to dive into. And we haven't even touched the XV5080, the piano, the vocoder. We should probably discuss it another time. And the presets are going to be other patches from the Zencore library. So right out of the box, it comes with a lot. Again, this is a great performance tool as well as an inspiration igniter, a spark for inspiration. I've already seen comments saying it's just a controller, the plug-in, and blah, 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 blah. I would much rather have this than take a computer and a separate controller and have the computer maybe futz out on me at some point. I'm honestly tired of working in the box as well with software synthesizers, and I haven't. For a very, very long time, I am working almost exclusively outside of the box now when it comes to programming synthesizers and drum machines. And this offers a ton of flexibility, sounds that we're familiar with, a layout that we're familiar with, a look that we're familiar with. I think this is probably going to tug on a lot of people's heartstrings. It sounds great. Doesn't have the analog feel quite yet, at least for me, but it's almost there. But you know, if you want a Juno 6106 and you don't want to spend thousands of dollars, this is going to take you really, really far. So now that we've taken a look and listened to the Roland Juno-X, I want to know what you think about it. You know, Zach's video was a lot of fun, and you know, the question that he posited was, you know, is this going to be a synth for the ages, or is it just a cash grab? And I know everybody's going to have their opinions about it, which is what is so much fun about YouTube, all the lovely opinions that come out. But I'm curious as to, you know, how you think this might work within your workflow, if you don't see any value in it at all. Again, I love it. I have a gigantic collection, so you know, when it comes to me purchasing a new synth, I really, really think about what it's going to offer before I take the plunge. You know, at $2,000, it's not necessarily cheap. If they had made an analog synth, it probably would have increased the price of this by another $1,000 to $1,200, somewhere in that range. A lot of the new analog synths that are coming out today from the heavy hitters like Sequential, Dave Smith, and Oberheim, like the new OBX that's going to come out, you're getting up into $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. New Oberheim's going to be $5,000, right? You can have 2.5 of these and take these so far. Is it going to sound like, or is it going to feel like a real analog synth? That's up to you. To me, once again, I don't get all the feels out of it that I want, but does it sound like an analog synth? Absolutely, I love it. And it's, again, there's the nostalgia behind the design, but it makes sense to me because I've been doing this my entire life. My first analog synth was a Juno-60, which again, very, very similar layout. So please let us know what you think about this, and if you think it's something that you might add to your collection. I'm really excited about it, and I'm, once again, pretty sure I'm going to do it. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close this out. Please keep creating, be kind to each other. If you haven't subscribed to us, to Alamo Music Center, or the Audio Lab, please do so. Remember, we have a piano channel, guitar channel, bass, accordion. I think I covered everything there. And just tune back in. Let us know what you want more of, what you want less of, and we will try to tailor that to our viewers' needs. I'm Chris Cline. I'm signing off. Keep on creating. Talk to you soon.